Okay, so I'm going to tell you a short, specific, detailed story at the moment that is 100% accurate. And it involves some specific police and a police station. Okay, this is a story about Nerang police station on the Gold Coast. If you're reporting a crime and you need some assistance from police, I recommend that you never go to Nerang police station. Choose another station, any other station. Try to avoid Logan Central and try to avoid there's some offices at Southport as well, but generally Southport's a little bit easier to deal with, but that's off the point anyway. So Nerang police station. Let's go through the consecutive events and who was involved. So we've got an incident that I was in where a person was holding a child. This person firstly repeatedly tried to get me to crash a car, trying to assault me with two children in the back of my car. Then repeatedly stated that they were going to kill me, very seriously trying to kill me. There was no joking around or anything. It could not be taken any other way because they were physically trying to kill me. And at the time I knew it was going to continue. It was getting escalated. It wasn't getting resolved, though I tried to diffuse it. And I've got literally thousands of cases in my security work of diffusing scenarios like this with not a problem in the world. I've got over 800 of them filmed, from serious to non-serious matters, and how I handle them. And this person was just on a psychotically ill rampage, basically, over the most trivial thing, over getting embarrassed because someone exposed them with problem gambling. They have a severe anger problem to start with. They've got health problems, complications internally that when they get angry get exacerbated, and this causes further health problems and anger problems. And then they were asked to just read something very simply because the other person couldn't read. I can't go into specific details with this, but because it's currently legal issues, but they were asked to read the ingredients of something, and they just lost the plot going on about some other tangent of stuff that had nothing to do with it. So that's how it started. So anyway, no matter what was said to this person by me or anybody else there, they were fixated, and still are to this day fixated, like we're talking about 4 years straight, on that thing, as if what they believe in their head is true when it's verifiably completely false. And they're walking around in public fine as day. Okay, so then this person grabbed a 2-year-old child under their arm, grabbed a large razor sharp knife, and it was ultra razor sharp, and then in front of another child, a 5-year-old, threatened to kill me, and then threatened suicide by putting the knife right next to their carotid artery. Like, one little nick, bleeding mess on the floor with, like for example, if the 2-year-old under her arm struggled at all, she would have nicked her throat. And like, this is a knife that you can drop stuff over, like on television, and it just peels over the knife. And it was a large knife too. It was an 8-inch knife, a chef's knife. So then in that scenario, I would have been in a scenario where I would need to explain to police why there's a bloody dead person on the floor in front of two young children killed by a knife with my fingerprints on it, with no other witnesses. But luckily, I thought something was going to amplify, so I switched my body camera on and I filmed the whole incident. Okay, so I eventually diffused that knife scenario the best way I could. I didn't want to hurt her, and I didn't want the children to get hurt. I had the option to take her down, but it was too risky with the 2-year-old under her arm, and so I just did it verbally, and I was successful to a certain degree. So I called 000 at the time. Around, I'd have to check the exact times. Around 2.5 hours later, police turned up to my house, and this is from like 4 minutes drive away, okay, to a suicidal psychotic person threatening with a knife and threatening to commit suicide. The police turn up 2.5 hours later from 4 minutes away. Okay, so that's obviously a problem. Then the officers would turn up, Senior Constable Daniel Horn and Senior Constable Kerr Hemingway. I don't know if Kerr Hemingway was a senior constable at the time, but he is now. So in that 2.5 hours, I had downloaded all the video footage that the other person didn't realise I had. And it also had them sitting, plotting to conspire against me and say that I did things that I didn't do, and also that she was going to tell police that I was the one that threatened her with a knife, say that I was hallucinating, all this type of stuff. And then she got on the phone and she called mental health services and told them that's what she told them. That was all filmed. She didn't realise it was all filmed until about an hour into conversations with the mental health staff. The mental health staff side of things is a totally different matter, which is the most horrendous matter you can ever imagine, but we'll stick to the police for now, because this is just one of my first public ones that I'm going to do. Okay, so the police have arrived. I've downloaded all the footage and I've set up the security camera again. This is the camera I'm referring to, and I've got those videos supplied to everybody, the police, everybody involved, and they're uploaded into multiple clouds and on multiple USB devices and so on, to keep them protected. So police rock up. I'm filming that too. You see me explain everything. They go and they talk to the other person somewhere else, and so the other thing that person did too was get the 5-year-old involved in it by telling the 5-year-old a whole bunch of nonsense about me and telling the 5-year-old to call me a pussy, basically a pussy mouth to be specific. And then she proceeded to tell that child also that healthy foods are poison, okay? And she clearly states these things on the video. So I'd say all of that's pretty serious. All psychotic, suicidal, abuse to children, psychological abuse to children, involving them heavily, putting their lives at risk, all this type of stuff. It was basically your textbook terrorism event. So then I'm filming the police, talking to the police, explaining everything truthfully, exactly as it happened. The Senior Constable Horn verifiably views the footage of what I'm referring to and spends about half an hour going through it with me, and then says that he needs to go and talk to his partner, and then they go away and they come back, and I knew straight away when they come back that there was something wrong, because Daniel Horn looks at me and he says, "So what do you want us to do?" Now, when a police officer asks you what you want him to do or her to do when they've just seen a pretty horrific set of crimes, you know there's a problem, because they should obviously know what they're supposed to do. At the very least, you would put the procedures, from what I understand of police, well, they would be if I was controlling them, would be to, one, get someone in immediately to do a psychological evaluation on the other person. They would immediately be detained, that's for sure. And then there would be a domestic violence order issued at the least, naming those children involved, to protect the victims, which at the time, the children, and then separately me. So there should be a child protection type notice. Sorry, I said domestic violence. There should be a child protection notice, and there should be also a protection notice of some kind with me as the aggrieved and the other person, whether it be good behaviour or charges of death threats or whatever. And how they play out from there would be dependent on the assessment, the psychological assessment, because if it's deemed that she needs to have the assessment and be detained temporarily to be assessed properly, which is the correct order of things, then she would be then under like a forensic order or something like that, not a TA, not a treatment authority or anything like that. But that depends on how the police and the mental health staff, their views of how to apply the law in discretion and arbitrary or anecdotal views or whatever. But the fact is that objectively the material evidence was that this person carried out the crimes that they did. There was no disputing that. There was no other facts involved whatsoever. So it was just a completely belligerent, mentally disturbing attack. There was no warranting or mitigating factors to it. From me, I had made no efforts towards this person to harm them or try to threaten or intimidate them. Neither had the children. It was all about them and their problem. There's just literally nothing else besides that. So then this Daniel Horn and Kerr Hemingway, I find out later, which is another section, arranged with mental health services and gave a whole bunch of false information between each other. Okay, now I didn't know what it was about at the time. I do now, because I've got all the documents through RTI. But anyway, what ended up happening was Daniel Horn is the type of person that he likes to be the hero protecting the damsel in distress. Now, that would be fine if he was really a hero and there was really a damsel in distress in this case. But there wasn't. The other person might have been in a vulnerable state, but that doesn't excuse them from committing a pretty serious offence or set of offences. And it doesn't take away from the fact that they were mentally disordered severely and still are. And all of these things appear to have been the contributing factors to why they carried out the actions that they did. Because what Daniel Horn did, for starters, is write that I'm over 6 foot tall, when I'm not. I'm 5'7". I just got measured again the other day, and it still confirms the same thing. I'm still the same height. Now, I looked up into the eyes of Daniel Horn, which you can see in the video, and Daniel Horn's taller than me, so I'm unsure if he doesn't know his own height or whatever, why he would come to the conclusion that I'm over 6 foot tall. I believe he was trying to create the facade or the superficial notion that I was overly, largely menacing, okay? Because he focuses on height here in this part of his report. He focuses on how small the other person was and how big I am, okay? So he asserts that the size of people means that a big person is a nasty, violent, bad guy or bad woman, and the small person is innocent because they're smaller. And because they're smaller, that means that they're easily intimidated and all of that sort of stuff. Completely ignoring the fact that they just pulled a knife with children, tried to kill someone multiple times, and threatened to kill them more. Which is clearly not an intimidated state. You would be saying things like, if you don't, it would be literally a completely self-defense scenario in that case. But there was nothing at all whatsoever in the case that indicates that was the case. They weren't in an intimidated self-defense state. They were in a I've been exposed, I'm embarrassed, I've gone psychotic state, and now I want to kill everyone and everything because of it, because I don't know what to do, even though I'm being told here's the best option and here's the support for it, which they have still chosen not to take. So they've never gone and sought out help for themselves. They've manipulated everything they possibly can to avoid the facts in the case and all of the context to it. And then Senior Constable Horn has assisted them, as with multiple other people leading from him, and we'll get to those. But so anyway, I'm over 6 foot tall apparently, but I'm clearly not. And that I was abusing this person when there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever of this. It never happened, so there never can be any evidence of this. That's how I know there's no evidence of it. The same with many other things that I know they've got no evidence of that they accuse me of, because they didn't happen. You cannot have evidence of something that you did not do. You cannot have evidence of something that did not happen. And, unless in two sorts of scenarios. If someone were sophisticated enough and went out of their way to doctor up evidence, like a video or something like that may seem like something happened, or unless you are mentally disordered enough to manipulate, or evil enough to manipulate evidence in a scenario like written evidence and records to suggest that simple, innocent things are really sinister, nasty, abusive things, which is actually the case of Daniel Horn, because there was no damsel in distress. He wasn't a hero by any means whatsoever. He's a weak and pathetic piece of shit, to be honest, and that's derogatory. I mean it to be derogatory because that's what he is. He's a lying scumbag piece of shit that has caused so many problems that you cannot even fathom. And I don't usually talk about people that way at all. I make sure I don't, but I call a spade because that's what it is. It's a spade's a spade. So then from there, the reason why he has done this, and I didn't know that at the time, is because he omitted the children being involved in the incident. He manipulated all of the evidence and geared it towards me. He got orders made and fooled a magistrate named Magistrate Dooley at the time, and she issued orders to, at the most petty and minimal level, put an order against the other person, but in a fashion to leave the children out of the scenario, purposefully omitting those details, which is all unlawful. It's all completely illegal. And police know this. Queensland, Nerang police, even the federal police know this, and the courts know this verifiably. And then all of a sudden, the children and this other person disappear at the same time. Okay? They disappeared. I didn't see, the children for over 7 months. Okay? I sent texts and emails because I know this other person and how they respond to things. I sent polite welfare check type emails to make sure the children were safe, because they were obviously, I didn't know whether they were with each other or what. I wasn't allowed to know. And all I know is that they just disappeared. Everything else in the world was normal, and these people had disappeared. And then I got a letter from someone that wasn't that person saying that they were that person, and that letter with a whole heap of verified lies that I know were lies. So that sparked me into a panic more so, because I couldn't understand why someone had disappeared and I got a letter from someone that wasn't that person saying that they were that person, with verifiable lies that I know that other person knows are lies, so would never write those things rightfully minded anyway. And that was obviously a very severe problem, and that made me fear for those children even further. So I've sent these texts and emails, a few of them, about 8 or 9 of them I think it was at the time, to try to initiate a response from that other person. And because I know how they work, and I know that you can say certain things to them and they'll just ignore it. But if it's something where they feel challenged or that they don't want to admit, then they get emotional and angry, and then they respond to it. So then I would know that they are at least safe. And so that would be one part isolated out of that scenario. Even though they did the wrong thing, it doesn't mean I'm trying to hurt them. It means I want them to get some help. Okay? That's the only thing I tried to do. Then, all of a sudden, this officer, Rasmussen, rocks up and charges me, right? Literally charges me for sending welfare check emails to find out if these children are safe and if this other person is safe and what's going on. You couldn't make it up, honestly. I also, because of the scenario at the time, roughly at the same time, called 000 to try to get a welfare check on the children. At the time, and I don't know if this is true, this is not verified by me, but it was stated to me, and they can check the phone calls if they want to, it was stated to me by the 000 operator that Daniel Horn was the senior officer at 000 at that time. Okay, Daniel Horn from the original incident. So I requested to speak to him. I was told no, it was refused. I explained the scenario, and I explained it in detail in the correct order and context that it actually was. I then got charged twice, again, with 2 federal indictable, I believe they are, carriage charges. One was vexatious use of 000, and the other was false belief and use of 000. Once again, I couldn't make it up, for doing a welfare check on some children that had disappeared at the same time as a suicidal psychotic person. Okay, so they charged me with all of those things. In the meantime, while that was happening, I lost some guaranteed work because of notices by Queensland Police Service. I was guaranteed some pretty good work at the Commonwealth Games doing security, and I got rejected because of some notices through the Queensland Government and Queensland Police Services, which are all completely false and verified as such, but they refused to correct them, even though they're legally obliged to, and they're legally obliged to also reprimand the people that put them there. And because I got rejected, and I was the only security officer at the time who got rejected in the whole company that I worked for, those people that I worked for then thought that I was doing something seriously wrong, and they terminated my employment that I had, which was long-term employment, which I'm very successful in, with the security company that I was with. So I lost 2 lots of work. I lost the Commonwealth Games subcontract work, and I lost my primary source of income at the time. So I had no savings, and then all of a sudden at the same time too, my computer started getting hacked repeatedly. Like literally every time I tried to use my computer, someone was hacking it, and it was coming through as authorized access, and it was verified by NBN techs, by IONET techs, and by my own personal technician, PC guy, Bonnie. And I ended up getting a full refund from IONET because of it. It was a new 5G network. It was getting piggybacked through. And that means every time I tried to do online applications and sort out evidence, because I was going through court matters and all this type of stuff with the incident, and being charged multiple times by police on false charges, as a result, I had no money. I couldn't even make applications to Centrelink. I had no support whatsoever. There was a massive team of lawyers and police and you name it, different people abusing the fuck out of me, even in the most polite ways, refusing to talk to me, refusing access to information, refusing access to services, in the most horrendous type gag order scenario that you can imagine, based on all of the lies, nothing besides lies, all verified as lies to this day. Not one piece of evidence has ever been offered against me. Not one piece of evidence has ever been offered to support any allegation or comment opposing anything that I've said. Nothing, not one. Seriously, nothing. There's been a couple of trivial hearsay opinions thrown in. There's a whole bunch of assertions and gossiping and everything, and the whole case is all run on hearsay and gossip. And then, so obviously Rasmussen charging me for this stuff too, just insane. I got locked up, and I lost another job. I ended up, I couldn't get Centrelink payments. I think maybe I might have finally got on, after going and sitting in Centrelink, I finally got 1 or 2 payments, and then I ended up just going and doing taxi driving. But what happened was I was driving taxis, and I was making enough money to support myself there, and I then got called into this Rasmussen interview, and they charged me, like, this is for sending emails with no criminal history, welfare check emails, and instead of what police would normally do, this Nerang these are all from the Nerang station, they charged me and locked me up in the station. They then took me down to the watch house where a very abusive officer was pushing me in the back and stuff like that, for no reason whatsoever. I was walking to where they were guiding me to, and then they detained me in a cell there over the weekend, like the whole weekend. They timed it so it's the maximum amount of time that I would spend in a cell before going to court. And I had to leave the taxi I was driving because I was mid-work. I was told that they just want to talk to me, which is a common method they use. They say they want to see me about something else, and then they suddenly charge me. Still doing it to this day, and that's at Nerang. So they charged me and locked me up, and I had to leave the taxi, and then I had to contact my taxi company and tell them that the car's in front of the police station, which initiated them going, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I had to get the police to contact them at the time." So then they start thinking I've committed a crime of some serious nature because I've been locked up, obviously, instead of just ticketed, which you would normally do with no criminal history, and based on emails, not any sort of violent crime or anything like that. And then I lost my job there too, because they refused to allow me to drive taxis anymore because they thought I committed a serious crime, and they couldn't have me carrying out a job in the public, talking to public and having children in my car and stuff like that. So lost my job there as well. And then it was back to the hacking and Centrelink and all that sort of garbage, where they were repeatedly deleting all the information as I was putting it into the Centrelink application form online, or when I got to finally doing it all, I'd push the submit button, and the submit button was just a dummy button, so I wouldn't lodge. Repeatedly, over and over again, I spent hours on the phone with Centrelink staff doing it. I filmed it, everything, all evidence of it. Okay, so, but that's off the track anyway. Then, after this, I had gone through all of that, and after 7.5 months, all withdrawn. Everything. Every single allegation made against me. I'd been detained, and this ended up leading to me being detained for a long time. I was tortured for over 1.5 years as a result, and I'm talking about psychological and physiological torture like you wouldn't believe, for over 1.5 years of this stuff. I then, as a result too, found that I found that there were other linking matters that were getting extended. The children involved were putting a scenario that was very unsafe, very unhealthy. They were being psychologically and physiologically abused, and that's caused serious health impacts upon them. To this date, 4 years later, that's all been ignored. And then, as I started to sort those things out, and get some sort of resolve with it all, what's happened now is I got a, sorry, I don't want to miss anyone. Sorry, in between, I was reporting crimes happening to me to two Nerang officers, but one of which, the most notable one, is I gave a whole heap of documents of blatant crimes committed against me. There was no denying that they were crimes committed against me, to Kerr Hemingway over the counter at Nerang. Now, he said to me, "Oh, it's just a simple disagreement." They weren't just simple disagreements. It was a stream of abuse that is constant via phone, okay? Verifiably so. It had been repeated for months on end, and he was just saying it's just a simple disagreement. At the end of the day, these people are basically saying, if I pick up a fork, even if I don't point it at someone, that I'm committing a crime. But blatant streams of abuse are not crimes, they're just simple disagreements. So he refused to log it as a proper report, which is what I didn't realise they needed to do at the time, I thought they'd just take it, then they do a report, and then they put it through as a job or whatever. I didn't realise I had to sit down with them, actually get them to write it out, sign it, and then they log it as a job, and then it goes through to the station wherever's closest to the other person you're making allegations against. I carried out the burden of proof in every single scenario I've done, and any allegation that I've made, with material evidence of all of it. Not one time of the burden of proof being met by any allegation made towards me. There's never been any evidence whatsoever. It's just been, oh, this is sort of my opinion, sort of, and I'm contrary to my other opinion there, but you just committed the crime and you're a bad dude. That's basically the be-all and end-all of their whole case, on every account. So then he says he's going to put it to his boss. That's the exact words he used. I'll put it to the boss and see what they say. Okay. Now, who he was referring at the time, I believe, is the officer in charge, the OIC, who is a woman that's probably 45, looks like she's 60 and on a deathbed. Looks like a pretty bad, stressed out alcoholic, to be honest. I don't mean to be derogatory, but she does look deathly sickly. And she's very highly stressed. I assure you of that. You cannot start to even say stuff to her without her reading into it and triggering some sort of denial response, and she's like, no, don't say that, you know. But she doesn't actually say that. She just tries to cut you off and demand that you are saying the wrong thing, and no, this is the way, that's the way, it's the only way, that's it, shut up and listen. That's basically her whole attitude. So she doesn't hear anything objective. All she hears is herself. I don't even know her name. I can't recall. It's written somewhere at home. But apparently, my evidence that I submitted was rejected by her, whether that's true or not, and whether it even got to her, and the evidence disappeared. Never seen again. Never reported. Nothing. So that's obstruction of justice. That's aiding and abetting. That's tampering with evidence. All types of stuff. Then we get to, more recently, I get a phone call. Acting Sergeant Goldsworthy says to me, I filled in a crime report, right? So, against someone. And then, of a crime that was actually verifiably committed, and they have been charged and pled guilty and convicted of the same sorts of crimes, which involve me protecting people and from them, and they are continuing to do it and pleading guilty to trying to hurt those people in a roundabout way. Okay, but they're just getting off leniently, like with $100 fines and convictions that way and stuff like that. So, and this is all to maintain the story of Daniel Horn from 2017. This is why they're doing this. They're obstructing justice against Daniel Horn and the falsified documents that led from there. So then I get this call from Goldsworthy. I need to go in and finalise. Somehow they didn't get my signature on the form before they lodged it. Can you come in, sign the form? You forgot to sign it. So I'm like, what's going on? This is weird. So I rock up at Nerang station again, talk to Deirdre and an officer named Jamie Ryan are at the counter. Now, Deirdre's a person that is a very nasty person at the core. She may appear to be nice, helpful. She's been a long-term employee at Nerang Station. I've had a few dealings with her, and she's pretty much, generally, her normal demeanour is a cut snake. As with a lot of police officers that, but I won't get into that. Anyway, so then I start talking to her about Goldsworthy's call. She's fumbling like usual when I try to report stuff. Like, this is the person that's blocked me talking from police multiple times with multiple different crimes. She won't let me get past her. She won't get a police officer involved so they can listen to me. She flat out refuses to take evidence, stuff like that, over the counter. Like, what sort of police station refuses evidence of crimes? Like, you got to look at that. This is what she's repeatedly done to me, and she's even got to the stage where normal behaviours like filming things that are bad or filming things that are good were referred to me as me doing something wrong, and she also asserts all types of other arbitrary, subjective stuff at me that has like little to do with my case. But anyway, she's fumbling around, making out as if she doesn't know what I'm there for, how to sign how to sign a report, a crime report. Jamie's standing there doing the same thing. What would we list it under? Where is it? We don't know where it is, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, Matt, we've got this charge here. This is Jamie Ryan, right? So they set me up again. They lied to me to get me in there so they can charge me. And then Jamie Ryan, he didn't offer an interview. He then purges himself later, makes false statements on a brief of evidence saying that he offered me an interview. And then in court, he actually says that he offered me an interview. Now, I'm the type of person, and anybody knows this, I am very proactive in providing contextual, truthful information. I always have been, always will be. And I jump at the chance of an interview anytime I can to get it on the record officially. That's why, to get it on the record officially so I can be actioned. Okay? He purposefully didn't offer an interview to avoid that, because he did not want me to have these things officially on record, because as he stated in court, his only job was to get me, right, to put these falsified charges. He didn't say it in this way, but the way, if you heard what he said in court, you will hear that his only job given to him by Nerang Station, OIC or wherever, was to specifically target me. Okay, so that in itself is a pretty serious problem, particularly if it's based off verified false information and all context is omitted and removed and redacted from that. Okay, for an officer to charge someone, they would need to have some sort of reasonable material evidence or backing to come to the conclusion that it would be a good idea to charge someone. But they don't, and they never have. But they still do it. They still just charge me. So he issues a ticket. He states later too that he has a witness, which is this Deirdre woman. He stated that he was called over by Deirdre to do all of this stuff. He was at the counter at the time. So he lied multiple times. And then with my brief of evidence, Senior Sergeant Rule, Sergeant Bob Sopper, also at prosecutions in Southport, all ignored and avoided. Sopper blatantly lied on record in emails to me, and then they played this ping pong game basically of who's got the brief of evidence, with me basically getting me chasing up a brief of evidence like a week after it was due in court legally, and then it was due to be issued to me because there's a set time limit on it, and then they said there was a typographical error, so they had to amend it and all this sort of stuff. A 2-minute job that took weeks, and then all of a sudden they gave it to me just before I went into court, and then the police prosecutions perjured himself to once again, Magistrate Dooley, who's dealing with again, and I stated in the court and in writing to the court that police prosecutions lied. They stated that I had my brief of evidence by the due date, which I did not, and verifiably so, so it's perjury, straight out. Clear-cut case of perjury by police prosecutions. Nothing done about it. Okay, all completely ignored as well. So, and Jamie Ryan, at least the one thing Jamie Ryan did do correct is he issued a ticket to me. He didn't lock me up. Okay, because that's generally the good, correct procedure. But then they said that Deirdre was willing to lie for him under oath as well by stating that he offered me an interview, which he never did, because I would have gone into an interview, as I always do, and jump at the chance of. Unless there's some specific thing that I can verify that would be obviously unlawful of them to, and verifiably, when I say with material evidence, that would be unlawful of them to interview me in that scenario at the time, which I didn't have any indication of at that time. I just knew that there was something wrong. I didn't have material sort of evidence for it. Then I'll jump at the chance of an interview. There's no doubt about that. I'm outspoken in those things. They hate me because I send evidence to them. They hate me because I do speak to them. They tell me to shut up. They come around my house threatening me, trying to provoke me and intimidate me at my own house. Even with my children right there, they do it. You know, I've had one officer standing at my door with his arm resting on his gun, telling me to stop sending emails to them because these emails have evidence which proves that their own officers at Nerang are committing crimes against me, continually causing problems in my life up until this date. Okay? So then Jamie Ryan's gone in, provided false information in the most illogical, backward thinking, reverse order, petty ways to assert tones and their own personal beliefs not consistent with any type of reality of me to the courts, and somehow fooled the courts into convicting me of a crime that I did not commit, that isn't even the crime that I was charged with, and all they had was reasonable doubt. There was nothing besides reasonable doubt and evidence against everything that they said, and they still charged me, but it's going to appeal, and they still convicted me, which is going to appeal, sorry. And even though the other person involved in the case sat in the jury box, in the witness box, and confessed to multiple crimes that they committed during that time, which were the context of what I sent to them in the first place, which shows that I should never have been charged. So they went in this completely backwards order, and then they initiated all these legal technicalities to prevent a hearing where there would have been evidence presented against Nerang officers again. Because I put in affidavits in another case to go against, because in the particular case, what was going to happen is, and in another case as well, and another case too, I won't go into, the judges and magistrates will ask for evidence of things like police records and health records and all this sort of stuff, to try to exploit those things against me. Now, they all verifiably know that all of the records created against me are verifiably false. There's no doubt about that. It's not even this stuff's not even an opinion. This is just a statement of consecutive facts. All right, that's undeniably verified, and it's undeniable all the way. There's nothing to dispute it. So then, because I lodged affidavits with this evidence against multiple police officers and serious crimes against myself and other people by the Queensland Police Service and other linking agencies, or departments I should say, because the entire thing's classified as an agency, because the Queensland government is in damage control generally, and some of it links to the Commonwealth government as well, the federal government. They have initiated this backward order criminal action against me to make sure that no one can get that hearing in the other case and present that evidence against their officers and their government staff. And that's where we are up to date. Okay, so there's still, I'll tell you right now, I've now got Queensland Human Rights Violations notices and complaints in to go to the Commission against them all. Very heavily detailed and backed context, all with material evidence to back it all. They are refusing to investigate. The police are refused flat out to investigate any claims. Therefore, they could not come to the conclusions that they need to charge and convict me of things, because you cannot say that something's happening if you refuse to investigate that thing to see if it's happening in the first place. That's reverse order again. You can't just go, well, we're not going to investigate, but yep, it's happening. And we're not going to investigate, but that other thing's not happening, which is what they're doing. They're covering up from both sides. They're saying the things that I'm saying aren't happening by not investigating and getting the evidence that's right there, and ignoring the evidence that I've provided, and they're saying the from the other side, if you know what I mean. So they're blocking all investigations. They're just basically doing box tick. Yeah, that happened. Tick, tick, tick. Yep, that happened. Oh, bad guy. Matt, bad guy. They're all good. They're great. They need to be protected from Matt because Matt's a bad guy. So that's basically what they're doing. They're running a massive, extraordinary, and extreme smear campaign on me. Anything that I say I'll do, they try to do it. There's even police officers, and I filmed this as well. There's police officers that get emails with evidence, right? Then they're like, what are you talking about? We don't know what you're talking about, which is the cognitive inability of theirs, because they're all very contextual, concise pieces of information that just run in a consecutive order, okay, with undeniable evidence there, right? And we're talking about trained professionals, apparently, to deal with specific matters that I send to them. Oh, we don't know what you're talking about. And then the police officer turns up, stop sending, you sending emails again, stop sending emails. Which is my right after the other staff have told me to send that to them. Okay? Then these police officers are calling mental health services or issuing reports to mental health services that I've got a mental problem, that I've got some sort of cognitive problem, because I'm sending contextual emails with evidence to the police. So the police are going, we can't handle getting evidence, we don't know what you're talking about, and it's your mental disorder because you're so concise and healthy that you're giving it to us, and we're police. Why are you sending evidence to the police? You're mentally disordered. That's literally what they're doing. And mental health services calls me saying, yes, look, we know, we understand, but this is what they're doing. And I filmed all of that too. Okay, so seriously, guys, it's over. Really, do you really want to continue instead of just obeying the laws that you are employed to do so in the best public interests? Why continue it? Why continually make me the victim of all of this nonsense that does not exist? It's your fictional fairy tale fixation, or it's your damage control. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the other people involved, but you're using them as horses. Oh, I'm protecting this person or that person. And where's the evidence of anything that you're actually achieving, that you're actually doing? The only person that's actually moving forward proactively and legally in these scenarios are 2 young children and me. We're the only ones. We're the only ones with the consistent, ethical, lawful behaviours involved in all of this. So, Nerang police station, and I wouldn't normally do this because I've had lots of police friends and I've had lots of police that I've worked with and grew up with in the community, but Nerang police generally, oh sorry, I forgot one. Now we've also got Tara. Okay, Tara Ferguson, Constable Tara Ferguson. Almost forgot you. Sorry, I've got to make you famous too. So Constable Tara had a report given to her with criminal conspiracy information and evidence against Daniel Horn, verifiably, cannot deny it, as multiple other people, and criminal conspiracy of another person involved, okay? I then got ghosted after she verifiably took that report. She's at Nerang Station too. It was the first time I met her. So, and there's another one too, I've got to remember, before that. So, she got this report, she verifiably took it, it's a signed statement, I've got a copy of it. And it had all video material evidence of these things being carried out. So she just ghosted me after that. So when I followed up, I talked to her the other day, and she said she just amended some records based upon it, but nothing else has been done, which is extremely bizarre. And I'd love to see what the amendments were. I'm thinking probably there's some sort of derogatory comment about me in my files more than anything, but I don't know that yet. I'd have to check it out, and I'm waiting for the RTI release. So then all of a sudden Ferguson calls me after ghosting me the other day, leaves a message on my voicemail saying that she needs to speak to me about a criminal matter where they're looking to charge me for it. Once again, like we're talking about, I think it's 8 now, false charges against me. I'm fairly sure that constitutes harassment at the least, that have all been dropped and dismissed, that have all been, they're just the most illogical, backward thinking things. They're all based upon me being polite and well behaved and ethical. Every single one of them. Nothing outside of that, but they add all these bullshit tones and intentions and stuff of their own into stuff they literally change the definition of the dictionary while they're doing it. But I haven't seen the dictionary change yet, and I know our laws are based upon the dictionary, the written laws, so I'm fairly sure everything they're doing is unlawful. That's how I know. That's without even getting into the technical side of the criminal code, or the Justices Act, or the Constitution, or human rights. So, excuse me, I'm detoxing. So anyway, when I contacted her back, I sent some emails to her first, because I thought I knew what it was about, so I sent her all the context and the information and the evidence against what I believe she's going to try to charge me with. And she said she's not going to look at it, she's not going to read it. Okay, so that's a neglect of duty, that's improper police service, that's a refusal to provide a public service, once again, which I'm getting across the board with all government departments these days. And prior to that, which is what I was going to bring up, I went into Nerang Police Station and I finally got past Deirdre one day. And I issued them with USB. Now, this USB had material evidence of child abuse on it. Pretty serious child abuse too. And the context of that, the psychological abuse, also led to physiological abuse, where there are doctors' reports to confirm these things. And then that police officer that I talked to issued that to child services, okay? Which is a totally other horrendous matter too. I'll get around to that one day as well. So what I am unsure of, though, because of the response I got, is it appears that this officer has actually asserted that I'm actually guilty of the child abuse that is carried out that is expressed by these children, rightfully so, and openly on the videos. Like, they're talking about this abuse, and it appears from the reactions of other people that, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I'd have to check it. I'm waiting for the records. It appears that this officer then put in a submission that, yes, there's child abuse, because she was obviously concerned that she submitted it, but that abuse is coming from me, not the other person. When clearly on the videos, the children are talking about that other person abusing them. So I don't know how other people have got it all twisted around, as if they're talking about something else completely different that's illogical and not even existent in reality. It's just something they've plucked out of their fucking fictional fairy tale head again. So anyway, so that's where we're at. And as I said, I wouldn't normally do this, but Nerang police, fuck you, you criminal scumbag cunts. Alright? That's what you are, because you're operating our public service, our police service, as a private corporation. That's what you're doing. To conduct criminal, organised crime. That's what it is. You are organised crime. That's what you are. Nothing more, nothing less. There might be a few sporadic good officers in there still that are probably thinking, how the fuck can I get out of here, or what can I do, because they're in the service now and they're stuck. Either quit or try and get a transfer. But that's Nerang Police Station for you. I'll have following videos with more specific details at other times. Thank you.